All right, so I'm sitting here with the man, Monty Betham, former professional boxer, recently retired, and former Kiwis League representative, NZ Warrior, and you played for the Wakefield Wildcats in England?
Yeah, that's right, man.
Cool, man. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today.
Anytime, brother.
About, about masculinity and what it means to be a man. And you grew up playing sports in like an ultra masculine environment. How was that? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, I guess so. Also, back in the day, playing league, which was meant to be the game, everyone sort of looked at rugby as the kick and clap game, and rugby league was the tougher game, was supposedly, and it was all about who could bash and who could hit harder, and back then, fighting was okay, and didn't mean that made you more masculine, but I mean that's the perception of today, and growing into it. Back in our day, things got heated and you got amongst it, but ideally that doesn't mean you go out there and because you fight that makes you the tougher person. Quite often when people ask who's the toughest person you played against, there was a guy called Jeff Tuvey, who's done a bit of coaching for Manly, who's been finished, and everyone says he's the toughest guy because he was little, but he would just take on any forward head on. He never threw a punch in his life, because that's not what makes you tough. What makes you tough is fronting week in, week out, playing at a certain level and never giving in, and always fighting for your team, figuratively of course, and he was amazing, and those sort of guys inspire the big guys to do their job when the little guys lead the way.
Did you miss playing league?
I don't actually, but I do miss getting into that arm wrestle with teams, and then as a team you slowly win that battle, and you see the other team losing that competition. The battles in the middle of the field when you're slowly getting over them and you're talking to them and you're knocking them down, you're scoring a try, or you're repelling 3 or 4 different sets on your own line. That's the sort of stuff when you as a team you build through it, and then if you win those games by 1 point, by 2 points, the feeling you have of exhilaration after the game to work so hard to win is awesome, as opposed to beating someone by 30 points, 40 points. Those were never fun.
Yeah, right. Just steamrolling over people.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's a contest that's fun, and when you come out of the contest on the right side of the result, of course, because sometimes you have some really awesome contests, but for whatever reason, sometimes it's a little bit of luck, and you lose those, and those are killing. Those are hard. You'd rather get beaten by 40.
And you and I met when you were professional boxing. Yep. I was moving from Muay Thai to do a bit of boxing myself, and you kindly offered to do a bit of sparring. How did you find boxing?
Yeah, well, the transition from a team sport, because I was a karate background the whole way through growing up, which is totally different to boxing, which is very square, it's very long, and it was non-contact, it was like semi-contact. But I was New Zealand champion and New Zealand representative and all that, men's champion when I was 16. But then my dad was a proper boxer. He was top 10 ranked in the world, New Zealand, Australasian, and Commonwealth champion. So I've always admired boxers and always thought, what if? And then I got into a bit of sparring overseas, and they wanted me to do it. And I said, look, I can't. If I want to do it, I'll go home and do it. And that's when I came home and did it. But boxing, going from a team environment when you have a bad day and you may not necessarily play well, but people can bring you through, to one person, and it's all the onus is on you and how you prepare and how you play, was exciting, because I used to be a captain of the Warriors and other teams I played in, and I used to always wonder why I had to motivate so many people to do what they love doing, and used to think, why when it's a privilege role, you get paid some good money, and to do that is a real privilege. It's amazing. So I used to wonder why they needed so much motivation. And I thought, well, I'm always self-motivated. I don't have to depend on anyone else. This will be really good. It'll be exciting. I can box and not worry about it. But at the same time, if you have a bad day, or if you haven't quite done what you need to do in terms of prep, no one else is going to help you.
So these are all hyper-masculine sports, I guess, and the public perception is that they're violent. But you're like a great role model for young people. What does being a good man mean to you? What do you think that we're doing wrong in our culture that we have so much family violence and sexual violence and alcohol-fueled street violence? What is it that we're not teaching boys?
I think a lot of us, we're victims of our own upbringing, and because you're sort of growing up and you're seeing other people in and around it do it, you think it's okay, or subconsciously you do it anyway, or you get stuck into that. But it's about breaking the mold, breaking the cycle, because we know now, and we get a lot of people come out realizing it's not okay, whether it be violence, whether it be or it's okay to talk. Now you've got big role models coming out and trying to express their views because they've been there, done that before. So in society now, or as a person now, you should always want to learn and gather as much information as you can in any sort of position where you can learn. And talking or hearing these people come forward and say it's not okay, or you should talk, and that is huge because of where they come from and what they've done. No, anyone can talk textbook stuff, but some people that have been through it and experienced it and can talk, that's amazing. And I think you should gravitate towards those people, exactly what you've done with your experiences, and you're talking about it. Sione Famawina, a great rugby league player who blew wonderful opportunities, and he could have been one of the greatest league players we've seen out of this country. Financially, he had opportunities to do well in the game, but he, for whatever reason, on the alcohol, violence, everything to go with it, anger management, he struggled with it, but now he's turned it around and he's using that to help others. So it's just for the kids now, it's never too late. But it's about surrounding yourself with the right people, and also knowing, and obviously sometimes something may not be right or the thing to do, so it doesn't mean you get it on board straight away. You've got to work at it, you've got to seek that help and those people around you to ensure that in time it's going to become habitual, which means you do it without having to think about it.
Do you think that our boys are comfortable talking about their feelings enough these days?
I don't think they are, and I've got no problem with it, man. Everyone used to think I was the hard guy, I was the strong guy, and I've got that side to me. But man, I don't mind having a cry. I don't mind telling people that that's not okay, or that I didn't like that, or I feel hurt, or I feel sensitive. Communication's a big part of life, and I think it's been good for me because, and in my relationship with my wife, who's been my high school sweetheart, and over the years, sometimes communication wasn't there, but communication is key, letting people know you're on the same page, or letting people know how you feel, so that then they can perhaps change their approach to you, or they can work with you, and definitely not against you, because sometimes people have the right intentions, but it's not until they know how someone is feeling that they can make a huge contribution to helping that, or being around them. So friends in particular, I've seen over the years when we've been in situations where friends have done some things and they kept quiet about it, and you only wish that they told you so you could help them out. Sometimes they're good and they got through it, but then sometimes for whatever reason they didn't, and then there's obviously the worst outcomes that we've seen more and more these days with people taking their lives.
Yeah, we have a huge suicide problem in New Zealand, and it's young men who are the biggest.
It's young men. Look, I went to a funeral last year, and it was this beautiful girl who was a very good student. It was a black belt in karate, and no one could touch her. She was amazing, and she took her own life. She was hanging by her black belt, and her younger sister came in and saw her, and everyone else, and I was confused, and I didn't understand why. Yeah, she was getting bullied by 10 people, but honestly, she would have, if she wanted to, she could have put a stop to all 10 people at the same time. This is how good she was. But it was that cyberbullying, it's that constant bullying that went on, and that no one knew about it. And being at their funeral and hearing all their loved ones speak and all the hurt and pain around it really got me worried, and it got me thinking about what's important in life, and that's sad, and I didn't really understand depression and everything around it, but it is a real problem, and it is a disease, so to speak, and no one's going to know, and that's because no one knew a thing.
No one talked about it.
She didn't talk
she
about
felt
it.
ashamed,
and I don't know why she didn't talk about it, because I would have been a guy that was there to help. There was probably a good 10, 20 people there that would have been able to help the situation and make her feel better about herself. And this wonderful girl who offered so much to all in the karate community, in life and everything, should be there, a good person to go and be in society, because she was a wonderful person, but she's lost to us now because she didn't talk about it, and then she didn't get any help, and that's really sad for me.
You said that your wife's your high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What do you think has made that relationship long lasting? What to you makes a healthy relationship?
Well, I think over the years it's history, and it's because you don't know any better, to be honest. But right now,
you're stuck with each other.
We've been together for so long, man, and it's never been as good as it is now.
Yeah, right.
And the reason why it's been as good as it is now in the last couple of years is because communication.
Communication.
Honestly, it is amazing, and it's a true partnership, because communication is just not talking, and it's just not me talking about myself or talking about how I feel. It's about listening to what she says and how she, you know what I mean? It's amazing. And don't just go yes and then and fob her off or whatever, because you can call back on particular things. And her sense of worth over the last couple of years, because I actually do listen to what she says and take note, and then as a result act on some things that she likes or is important to her. Man, it's gone from strength to strength. So this is it's been amazing, and that's through that communication. So that's through talking and through listening, and always checking in. Where are you now? Okay, how are you feeling? And what about this and that? So you can't just go, how are you? Check in, and then leave it for another 4, 6, 8 weeks, and then if it gets bad, go, oh, okay, don't get into that situation here. Just keep checking in. Okay, how's things, and what's making you feel good, and this, and you can see, but it's obvious, and we're pretty tight. So for me, man, it's communication, but that listening part's probably more important than anything else.
And I guess it's like a transferable skill from sport to a relationship, right? But men often, we communicate in the sporting ground. We listen to our coach or our teammates, but we don't listen to our partners. Do you think that's true to say?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Your partner is like a teammate, and it's probably the most important teammate you're ever going to have. You get people on the league field and rugby field that you can win some games with, and you've got a partnership and a bond, but nothing like your wife or your girlfriend that potentially you're going to be or your boyfriend that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, because that's you have kids with, you have a life that's, no matter what happens, you can turn to this teammate, and they can be there, and they know you better than anyone else. So that's the relationship you got to invest your time in, and that's the one where you know that it's going to count, and that investment's going to come back and help you in a number of ways if you get that one right.
You touched about Sione Famuina, who's a great guy. I interviewed him on the radio for a couple of hours once, and we went deep talking about his drinking problem. I'm always seeing stories in the newspaper about young guys or young sports stars having a problem with alcohol. Is that something that you've been around?
I think it's young people in general have a problem with alcohol, and it just gets magnified because these people are in sports and they're in under the spotlight, which helps it. But there are some stresses involved with being an athlete and a professional athlete, and the pressures which sometimes you can ease off by having some drinks, I'm sure. But that's the problem right there, and I think it's the binge drinking culture that we find ourselves in as Kiwis. It's the way we do it. And
so what's a better way to let off some steam than getting on it?
Yeah, well, there's different ways. I mean, look, how good does it feel to hit a bag, man?
Very good.
It feels really good. I guess our fight-flight system that we are made to have is, we get into a situation where our muscles tighten. When we tense up, we're getting ready to fight off the predator coming towards us, and that's what happens. That's what stress is, and what you got to do is, if you go for a run, if you go and do some boxing, or if you do something like that, even if you go for a walk, our body has a perception that it's getting away from the threat, so then your muscles start to relax, then you start to feel better, and then everything else becomes a lot easier. It's not always the case, but that's the first point of call, and I think that's going to help you out. Alcohol just may make you feel good for a little while, but when you wake up the next day, or those bad feelings that are in might surface a little bit sooner, or put yourself in a predicament that there's no coming back from, and then your stress has become that much worse, and you get into a bad situation that could involve the police or could involve people's lives, and that's dangerous stuff.
Have you ever been around, I guess, family violence? Is that something that's been in your personal life or friends' lives? Or
Yeah, man, definitely. 100%.
Have you ever had those difficult conversations with someone, like either who's been a perpetrator of family violence or on the receiving end of it?
I haven't had it. Had conversations, but I was around it when I was a kid. But at that age, you can't have conversations. But this was something that I wouldn't have a problem having a conversation with anyone, even if it's one of my close friends, because I really believe, and there's different types of abuse. There's mental abuse as well. There's physical abuse, and sometimes mental abuse is worse than physical abuse. But when you look at from a partner point of view, and you think about a guy beating up on a girl, that just really grates me, physically or mentally, man. They're beautiful creatures and they're beautiful people, and to think that you want to hurt them or belittle them and bust them down mentally, it's just wrong. 100% wrong. And
it comes back to resolving any sort of disagreement through that good communication that you're talking about.
I think it comes back to you being happy with yourself first, because you get in those situations where sometimes you're not happy with how you are. It may be your weight, it may be how you're feeling, stresses at work. If you can feel better about yourself and be happy about what you're doing, and then you generally walk around in a happy mood, you're not likely to go back home and take it out on the kids, take it out on the partner, take it out on little things, because I've seen people, I've been in situations like that myself, when you're not feeling good, and as a result you're a little bit shorter, and perhaps you sometimes pick on people, and I've seen it, and that's not good. So you've got to get yourself in order first, get that right, and then you go back to your strong principles again of how you treat people, how you talk, how you communicate. And then if your partner truly is on the same level and you have that partnership, it's like you're going out for the first time. You remember that first relationship when you're at school and you're loving it and you're going, oh, it's real cool.
Anything you want to finish up with? Anything you'd like to say to, if you had a room full of young men and they're setting out in their sporting career, what would you tell them about being a good man? Anything you want to finish up with?
Look, to be a good man, it's easier if you find a couple of role models that can be around, that you can constantly talk to, you constantly watch, and you constantly see how they work in particular, or how they perform in particular environments. And when I mean perform, I mean just watching them being a person, watching them being a good dad in a good environment, watching them in a situation where there's a misunderstanding, how that they get out of that and what they need to do. Or if they're feeling a little bit down, how do they feel better about themselves? What do they do? And that's what you need to do. Or just ask the questions. Have a couple of mentors that you can do that with. Someone you can follow, someone you can watch and admire, to be like, we do that as rugby league players. We watch players that we love to aspire to be. So you can do that as a great man. And I think if, they say in the All Blacks, great people make great All Blacks. And if you're a good person, you can be a great player. So for the people out there, if you're happy at home, you're happy with who you are, I think you're more likely to excel on the field.
Thank you very much, Monty.
No worries, brother.